On this video, we are discussing how to construct a solid self-esteem and self-image while discussing what destroys it. In other words, if you break some bad habits that are destroying your self-esteem, you are actually building it up into a good and solid new level. On most cases, it's not what else you can do, it's what we want to avoid doing. So by watching this video, you'll have a deeper understanding of causes of low self-esteem and how to avoid them. One of the most important drainers of self-esteem is our wanting to please others. Many times we make the mistake of wanting to prove ourselves to other people, so we take actions we usually wouldn't take, or we do things we usually wouldn't do. Often, this is not just an overly obvious action and can be deeply buried in your everyday actions, maybe even in the course of your own life. So reflect deeply on your own actions and behaviors. First, on a micro scale, what happens when you're around certain people, why you behave one way with certain people and another way with others. Notice your behaviors and your own mental states with several groups of people like friends, family, co-workers, and so on. How different are you? Go deeper than at first glance. Don't just say, well, I'm the same with everyone, and get it over with. If you want to improve your self-esteem without any guidance, then you need a much more improved self-reflection than that. Notice your own everyday actions and behaviors also on a macro scale. Major life decisions, as in to pursue a certain career, to marry a certain person, to have certain hobbies. Also, do you find the need to prove yourself to others in some situations? Looking and reflecting about your behaviors and mental states in different kinds of situations is a good way to find if you have this tendency. The most curious case I come across was with a client who discovered an interesting thing about himself during our sessions. Whenever he met a new person, in whatever circumstance, he would bend himself backwards to accommodate his or her every wish. He couldn't stand that a new person would think less of him. Yet, with close friends or family, he was fully different and couldn't care less about accommodating them or doing anything for them. As you can imagine, there's a high degree of disconnectivity and self-esteem drainage over there. We did some work together in finding a balance between both of these situations. Bending over backwards to please someone is of course a self-esteem drainage and something to avoid. But ignoring our close friends or family members is also not a good bet. You need to understand the balance between both establishing a congruent, healthy, and balancing behavior. We have a free video just on the elements of mind control, and as such, lacking them is also one big contributor to lack of self-esteem. I recommend you to check out our video since it explains this in much more detail. What do I mean by little mind control? The mind control that I talk about here is the ability to control your own mind. If you don't control your own mind, someone else will. And if not someone else, at least your own unconscious mind will control you. And this is not something that you want to happen, considering there's a lot of unknown psychological material in there. This mind control means that you know where you want to go and you make sure that you get there. For that, you need to become fully in control of your behavior, of your thoughts, of your attention, of your feelings, of your body, your energy, and your interactions. For example, without the ability to tune out your distractions to focus on your work, you won't be very productive. Or, without controlling your inner voice, what to say inside of your mind, you won't be able to stop the negative thoughts that keep pushing your self-esteem down. If you master all the other principles that you discuss in this video, but your inner voice keeps pushing you down, then it's highly unlikely that your self-esteem can rise. We discussed the inner voice at length in our 10 Steps to Inner Power training course. Without controlling your own mind, your self-esteem will keep being sabotaged by your inner voice and by your actions, by your unconscious, who keeps moving your attention from side to side without stabilizing on what you truly want. That's why mind control is crucial to all forms of personal magnetism and energetic training. Our mind cannot be like a leaf in the wind. We must have a close control over it. We have some illusionary sources of confidence. Those factors which we identify ourselves in the sense that we think that this will bring us happiness, confidence, inner power, and so on. We believe this is a source of inner power because it makes us feel confident in the short term. But these are illusionary, since they are only temporary and exterior to our true self. Temporary because they are not permanent and this situation can change at any moment. And exterior to your true self because they don't rely solely on yourself. This can also be a weak point that others can use to take advantage of you. As you identify yourself with something exterior that's not your true self, you have developed a weakness that can be exploited by others or by darker forces inside of yourself. While you deposit your trust and confidence in these sources, you'll never achieve a real inner power. This is based on one of the fundamental principles. We are dominated by everything which our self becomes identified. We can dominate and control everything which we disidentify ourselves. It's always a positive thing if you recognize that you are identified with some of these illusionary sources of inner power, because then you can change. Some of the illusionary sources of inner power are our body, our wealth, worldly achievements, and so on. All of these things are temporary and grant you a temporary confidence boost. But we need to dive deeper than this. We need to connect with our center of pure will. And with this dynamic power, we can then direct and master it by using all of this to over whatever we want to achieve. The center of our will is the only permanent factor in the ever-varying flow of personal life. For example, it's very easy to connect to wealth as the source of inner power. But this situation can change in 1 second. Your bank goes bankrupt, a health situation happens, some bad luck happens, and all of a sudden, there goes your source of inner power and self-esteem. While if you are connected to a deeper source inside, even if this bad luck happens, and you still retain your self-esteem and inner power, you are still able to lift yourself from the ashes. Which illusionary source of inner power and self-esteem do you have? Can you have an unreasonably high self-esteem? Yes, you can. On most cases, you are filled with false beliefs and over-infatuations. It means that your ego was built up way too much. We don't want an overinflated ego or an underinflated ego. We want our ego and self-esteem to be in the correct measure. If our ego is built way too much, we tend to take things for granted and work less for it. We also end up with a much lesser degree of frustration and stuck it in the same place, since often we don't have the necessary humility and modesty to accept that we still have much to learn and evolve. Having an elevated self-esteem is as hazardous as having a lower one. One possible solution to this is to prove it to yourself that you can actually do things, as opposed to just have a belief about it. Many times we believe that we can do many incredible things without actually having done any of them. We actually want to avoid doing them to protect our fragile ego from a possible failure. As always, the only person that you have to prove anything is to yourself, not to others. But it's important that you demand this proof for yourself, otherwise you'll keep getting stuck in the same rut, especially if you want to improve your situation. Oftentimes, we don't evolve because we may think to ourselves, I can do this if I want to. Then, we never actually do it. The question you need to ask yourself is, can you really do it? Then why don't you? For example, a belief that you are a great dancer. Let's say that you have this belief since your childhood, since many people have complimented you on your dancing skills. Yet, this is an empty belief or a true belief. How can you prove this to your satisfaction? Well, maybe winning some dancing competitions or getting invited to dance festivals or creating great peer-reviewed performances. Are you really convinced that you can do all this? Well, then prove it to yourself. If you don't prove it to yourself and continue to say the same empty belief, one day you'll really need to use your great dancing skills and you'll fall short, and the fall will be a lot harder. Or you'll blame others for your own failures, since your self-esteem is too high to take the fault. Even if you had this belief and you went out to prove it and you fail, well, it's good. Now at least you know that you need to work in order to develop this skill and build a solid belief as opposed to an empty one. Naturally, we don't need to prove everything. Just don't construct castles in the air. Make sure that your castles have solid roots in the ground. Overall, don't confuse the self-esteem and inner power work that we need to do as a way to overinflate ourselves. We don't want to overinflate ourselves, but we also don't want to underinflate ourselves. We want to construct a solid belief, inner power and self-esteem based on concrete and solid actions and behaviors. Another self-esteem drainage is actually split in two. Some people either live stuck here to the past, usually with some bad luck or bad decision that they had, or anxious about the future. A high self-esteem person has learned from their past mistakes, leaving them behind and bringing only their lessons to the present. And this is optimistic about the future, making sure that his or her present is bringing him toward the future that he wants, using whatever it's in control to change. On the AA meetings, there's this saying: God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can't, and the wisdom to know the difference. Regardless of your religion, it's a very wise saying and one principle that we work very much with high-performance people, especially in sports or high finance. Regardless of how good your training is, there are many factors outside of your control. Because of it, some things we just need to let go and accept. And this is work heavily in sports psychology. Control what you can control and let go of the rest. You may not know what tactic your opponent will use, but you can certainly prepare your training for several different combinations of tactics. Focus on what you can control. And we need to do the same with our lives. Not living stuck into something that you cannot control, whether it's the past or the future. The past has gone, there's nothing we can do to change it. And the future is still yet to come. The only thing that we can do is focus on the present actions and behaviors, nothing more. Think about the future, learn from your past, but above all, stay deeply close to the present and take the actions that you need to take right now. In this short video, we discussed 5 enemies of self-esteem and inner power. Wanting to please others, little mind control, illusionary source of confidence, fake self-esteem, and stuck to the past or anxious about the future. With it, if you have low self-esteem, you can think more carefully about what's holding you back. What exactly from those enemies aren't you able to win over? Which ones of them have the biggest influence on you? Some food for thought if you care to reflect about your own situation. For more information on charisma and personal magnetism, visit charismaschool.com. We specifically have courses which focus on different topics of mind control and improving self-esteem. We have a course of the 10 steps of inner power where you can boost your self-esteem to a very good level. Then you can follow that with personal magnetism, sexual magnetism, and a whole magnetic gaze system that is being made available. You don't need to be stuck in the same rut. There's certainly a way out. Visit charismaschool.com for more information.